For this video I'm going to show how to crochet a pair of fingerless gloves. To get started, get a crochet hook that's suitable for the yarn that you're using, and then take your yarn and make a slip knot. And next you want to chain 8 stitches. And ignoring the first stitch, you want to work back with 7 double crochet. And after your 7th double crochet, you might want to tighten the tail end up a bit. And then chain 1 and turn your work. Once again, skipping the next stitch, the chain stitch you want to work back loop double crochet into the next 7 stitches. This last stitch can be a bit tricky. And then chain 1 and turn your work again. And once again you're going to skip the chain stitch and then you're going to work 7 back loop double crochet. Chain 1, turn, skip the chain stitch there and then work your 7 back loop double crochet once again. So after you've done a few rows, you'll start to notice there's a bit of a ribbing detail along your fabric. That's obviously deliberate, that's why I've done the back loop crochet for this. And then chain 1 and skip your chain stitch and then work 7 back loop double crochet once again. And you're basically going to keep doing this until you've got the band part of your gloves, as long as you want. But to do the next part of your glove, you want to fasten these together. So you're going to slip stitch these together to create a seam. So once you've completed your last slip stitch, I tend to do this by pulling the ball of wool through the loop. So obviously you'll need to make it larger. And I do this just to cut down on tail ends because I hate the tail ends, but you don't have to do it that way if you don't want to. And then that one tail end there, I usually do a knot. A lot of people recommend against doing a knot, so you don't have to do one if you don't want to. I just do it for a little bit of added security. So you'll end up with something that looks like this, and this is going to be the band that goes around your wrist. You're taking your darning needle, you want to work in your tail end along the seam. Once you're satisfied it's nice and secure, you can trim off the excess. And once that is done, you can turn it inside out so that you put the seam on the inside. And now with the piece of yarn that's still attached, you can create a new loop. Doesn't really matter where you do this, just put it through where you find it most comfortable and then create your first loop. And then you want to chain one and work a double crochet into the next stitch. Obviously these aren't proper stitches because these are the ends of the fabric, so you're kind of making it up, but if you try and keep it consistent with the amount of rows you did the first time. So once you've got your first stitch done, you can just put a stitch marker in to mark your place, because I'm going to do this in a spiral. Obviously you don't have to do it like that if you don't want to, but if you do, then the stitch marker does help keep your place for you. So next you want to do a half treble crochet, and then you're going to do that along the rest of the row until you get back to your original stitch. Sometimes it can be tricky to find the right place to put it through, but if you remember how many rows you did on your first one, just try and keep it consistent with that and it should usually size up correctly. So once you got back to the beginning, you can remove your stitch marker and then just do a half treble crochet directly into that stitch. This is what's going to create the spiral effect, and most importantly it gets rid of that little seam end. So this should give a smooth, unfinished appearance to the fabric. And once again, all the way around you're just doing half treble crochets. Once you're back to the beginning again, once again you're just doing it straight as a half treble crochet into your first stitch, and then you can put your stitch marker back in. So you're going to repeat that process until you've got the fabric as big as you need it for the palm part of your glove. And then you want to work the first stitch in a half treble crochet, and then you want to find at the bottom where your seam is, and I try and keep this on the inside of the wrist, so if you measure up along the top of your fabric where that will be, and then you can do your half treble crochet to that point. Then you want to count out how many stitches you're going to need for your thumb space. I already know that it's going to be 10 for mine, but obviously you will need to measure this for whoever you're making it for. So once you've done the required amount of stitches, you can always count it just to make sure that you're then going to seal through that stitch. So you're going to slip stitch into there, and then you'll chain 2. And this is the part where you are going to have a little bit of ridge detail on this bit, but it's better not to do this one in a spiral, I found. If you need a stitch marker to mark your place here, you can do. I don't always do that, but for the purpose of this video I've done it. And then you want to count as you go around and do 10 stitches, or however many it worked out for yours. When you get to the end, it is sometimes possible to accidentally too many stitches, so count them at the end if you're at all concerned, because if you do an extra one, it's better to remove it rather than end up with your work going out of shape. So I've done an extra one here just to demonstrate, and you just gently pull the stitch back until you get back to the right amount, and then you can slip stitch into the beginning of the row. So it is a good idea sometimes to try your glove on for size as you're going along. If that's possible, obviously it's not for you, you won't necessarily be able to do that. But if you can, keep measuring to check that it's not too big, not too small, and it fits you how you want it to fit. You make sure it's not too tight as well. To start your next row, you want to chain 2 and then work a half treble crochet into the next stitch. And then repeat the process that you did for the first round until you've got the thumb part as long as you want it to be. So once you've got it to the required length, you can slip stitch into the first stitch of your row, and then you can fasten your yarn off. Now decide which side you want it to be. If you do your joining on the inside of the palm, it covers up any slight imperfections in the join. So I join it here with a slip knot, but you don't have to do that. Some people prefer not to do knots in the middle of the fabric because this is quite chunky wool. It's not really going to be noticeable anyway when you put them on. So I always do it because I feel it's more secure, but a lot of people think that's not right. So if you're not comfortable with that, just join it as you normally join it. So then you want to chain 1 and then double crochet into your next stitch. And then take your stitch marker and mark your place. and then you're going to work a half treble crochet all the way around. So once you get to the thumb part, you're obviously not going to be doing proper stitches, so you have to find spaces where you think the stitches would be best placed. If you just skip them, you will end up with a gap, so you don't want to leave a gap, so you're going to have to work in some stitches into the existing spaces, even though they're not traditional stitches. You only need to do this for the first round, obviously. After that you will have proper stitch spaces. Then once you get back to the beginning, you can remove the stitch marker and then just do your half treble crochet into the stitch like you did the first time. And this again stops you from getting that little seam detail that shows up. And then you're just going to half treble crochet in the round once again. So once you've done as many rows as you need for it to be as long as you want it to be, you're going to get up to the first stitch, and then you're going to double crochet into that. And for your next stitch, you're going to slip stitch in and then cut your yarn and fasten off. So once you've done that, you want to turn your glove inside out so that you can weave in the tail ends on the reverse of the fabric. Can be a bit fiddly. So take your darning needle or your yarn needle, whatever you've got, and just weave the tail end through the backs of some of the stitches. And once you're satisfied you've done enough, you can just trim the excess. And then repeat this process for all the other tail ends. So once you've finished, you can turn it back the right way and then try your gloves on. And that's your completed gloves.